Okay, let's get going. You can see the agenda in front of you, but I am going to stop sharing so we can see each other here. Let me get the right grid up. Welcome. This is our fourth spotlight meeting for the Environmental Change Research Network. It's our November meeting. So let's do some quick introductions and then we'll get to the program. So in my little set of quadrants, Sasha, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sasha Harris-Levitt from the Berkeley Water Center. It's nice to be here today. I'll be giving a little talk about what the Berkeley Water Center does in just a bit.
Great. Deborah Summers. Deborah?
Sorry about that. I'm Deborah Summers, and I am with IPRA. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications.
Great. Kira?
Hi, everyone. Kira Stoll. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer here at Berkeley.
Great. Welcome, Kira. First meeting. Carl Blumstein? Okay. Carl's trying to unmute himself. Barbara, how about you?
Hi, so I'm Barbara Haya. I'm a research fellow at the California Institute for Energy and Environment and also at GSBP.
Great, thanks, Barbara. Welcome. Michelle? Oh, you're on mute. We'll come back to Michelle. Oh, there you are.
I forgot you have to hit the thing on the right, not the left. Anyway, Michelle Moskowitz, Office of Government and Community Relations here at Berkeley. I'm Director of Advocacy and Institutional Relations, covering state and federal, and have been here for many years. So I know a lot of you and happy to be here.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Gail?
Hello, I'm Gail Brager. I'm with the Center for the Built Environment and also faculty in the Department of Architecture. I just want to thank Bruce for continuing to help organize us all.
Good. Thanks, Gail. Dave Trinkle.
Hi, I'm Dave Trinkle. I'm Director of Research Development in the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research.
Terry.
Okay. Terry Searles, Senior Advisor, CIEE.
Great, thank you. Hi, Fan. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, Fan Dai with California China Climate Institute at CLE.
Great. Welcome. Catherine.
Hi, everybody. Catherine Baldwin, Assistant Dean of Development at Rausser College Natural Resources. And Bruce, I think you need to turn on the chat function. That's what Carl was trying to say earlier.
Yeah, it looks like it's on to me. Someone try it here while we're doing the intros. I just checked it and it looked like it was.
It says disabled.
Disabled.
Oh, let's not do that.
If you want to make me host, I can try to play around while you're managing things.
Let's just see. Interesting, because I can pull it right up and say hello. Did that work? Can you see my message?
You see your message, Bruce.
So see if you can type one back here. We'll just have, okay, I get it.
Oh, there we go.
You know, I think it's the Russians. You know, that's what I've always blamed. They've been messing with my settings lately. So Sergio, you're next. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi there, everyone. Sergio Castellanos. I'm with CIEE.
Great. Welcome. Did we miss anybody on introductions? Okay. Let me go back to showing you the agenda. Here's what we've got for today. I'm going to do cool climate news in just a minute. 3 things for November, and then be ready because we have some time to do network member updates or news. You've got something to share, no matter how big or small. We'll do that under the update item. And then we do one spotlight each meeting. And this month, we're going to have a great spotlight on the Berkeley Water Center. And then to finish up, a discussion. I want to see what you're thinking about Berkeley climate research and how this new administration that we are going to have come January, one way or another, may affect your research in a positive way, and how we're going to get more money here for climate research. So that's our agenda. Let me just go to second slide. So cool climate news. Here are three things. Boy, when I started doing this a couple of years ago, picking things off the various media on climate, you actually had to work at it. You don't have to work at it anymore. You have to work at selecting things because there are just so many good articles and stories out there. So I picked these three. The first one's about Arizona, highly recommended. I will put the links to these in the chat function. I'll send them out after the meeting as well. Really interesting about Arizona, which has now become a swing state and just elected a Democrat, Mark Kelly, to the Senate. And Mark Kelly, in the debates they had for the Senate race, actually talked about climate. His opponent talked about it in a very weak way. And Phoenix, if you've been following the news this summer, Phoenix set a record for 100-degree days, the number of them in the summer. But I think the more impressive number, I'll say it because I don't live there, is 28 straight days in Phoenix of it never going below 90 at night. You know, so for 24-hour period, but run that 28 days in a row. That's never happened in Phoenix. It's a hot place, as you all know. It's getting hotter. And so this article talks about how that has started to play into the political conversations really for the first time in Arizona. And the question there will be, will this now be a trend that we see in other states that are having not just climate impacts, but more obvious climate impacts? We'll see. The second one is from the Atlantic, and it's very good. The Atlantic now has a weekly feature called the Weekly Planet that they've just started that you can sign up for. I think it's free. And this one this week was looking at not that whether the Biden was going to win or Trump was going to lose, but assuming Biden was going to win, how are they going to put together legislation? How are we going to turn this into executive orders? How are we going to build more of a coalition than the last time when Obama won in 2008 and Biden was vice president? We're going to need a coalition, as you know, to do things. And this is a good article that probably raises more questions than answers them, but it's interesting about unions, about public opinion, about the difficulty that we often have on the liberal left side of thing of putting together working coalitions. So this one around climate, very interesting. And finally, an obituary for Mario Molina, who was one of the two key scientists on discovering what CVCs were doing to the ozone layer way back a ways. Eventually won the Nobel Prize or shared the Nobel Prize for that discovery, and got a presidential Medal of Freedom from Obama a couple of, that'd be 5-6 years ago at this point. And the CFCs not only harming the ozone layer, which is what their research was all about, but they turn out to be a pretty potent greenhouse gas as well. So very interesting man that deserved and got a big New York Times obit. And the kicker for us is that he came to Berkeley in 1968 and got his PhD here. He'd done undergrad elsewhere and was really affected, his biographer said, by being at Berkeley, especially at that time. But he was a scientist and very strictly a scientist, working on lasers and other things. And he came here into a social situation that they said really affected his science then, and his interest in doing something with his scientific research that would really improve the world. And that Berkeley, and being here for those 4 years, 68 through 72, had so much to do with that. So there's three. There could be 30 more, but I'll give you those three, and again, I'll put them in the chat function. It's time for member updates, and we take a little time in each meeting to hear quick updates from you, or quick news, new grants or new proposals or whatever. I'll give you a minute to be thinking, and I'll do my update, and you can be thinking about how you would like to talk to us about whatever you're doing. Let me minimize my little, yeah. So we, the Environmental Change Research Network, hosted a meeting last week, feels like about a year ago, on Monday the 2nd, of researchers on campus and other stakeholders working on our first pilot project. Remember, we talked a month ago, you may remember, about this new thing we're developing called the ECE Connector, which is going to bring people together around certain subjects within energy, climate, and the environment, and do that through meetings, do that through creating a database of who's working on what at Berkeley, to tell a better Berkeley story to donors and media and others, to facilitate research collaborations here on campus, and finally and eventually to start to identify some of the ECE research areas where we're stronger and where we could use some more work. So we decided to, instead of trying to run out this whole database and create this great thing, we'd start with some pilot projects and see how it works. So we brought, it was about 25 people together, researchers and stakeholders, both from Berkeley Lab and from the campus, from a wide range of disciplines on campus and at the lab. And the graph you see here is why we were picking engineered carbon removal. This graph that I'm showing you with my cursor was the traditional California historic setup for reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And this is the path that by the graphs, this nice smooth path that we're gonna have to get on to get to that. But we have a new California goal now of net zero, like some countries are doing and some other states, and it's by 2045. There is, as you can see, a gap between where we think we're going to be sliding downhill in a nice way on greenhouse gas emissions and where we'll need to be if we're going to meet this 2045 state goal. And this report, a really interesting report, came out of Lawrence Livermore, and some people at up the hill at the lab worked on it, and Daniel Sanchez on campus worked on it. It was called Getting to Neutral, and it looked at how we're going to engineer carbon removal and use working lands and natural lands to pull carbon out of the air and sequester it or make it into products. And that they felt in the report that you could get about this much out of that by 2045, which would in fact add together with our reducing emissions to get us to the goal. So we're working now on what's next with this group. We had a really interesting conversation, or we started it, about what are the things that we would do next on campus and with the lab to start to tell a better story and to get more collaborations. And they're really around a couple of things. One was that we need a center. We need somewhere where you can work on new ideas, work on policies, work on permitting, work on how you're going to scale these things up in one place, and not wait, for instance, to talk about how do you scale up a new technology for carbon removal till the end of the process. People talked about the Berkeley story and how many experts we have here for the whole range of things, kind of soup to nuts, that you're going to need to get these things in, not just hard science, but social science as well. A lot about finance and all. And finally, that here we are in California, where we've not only got a more progressive state government to work on climate, but we've got big agriculture, big forests, fairly big oil and gas industry, big cement manufacturing. We've got about every test bed you could need to start to work on these projects to remove carbon from the air. So I'll keep you up to date as we go, but that's what we're doing with that whole first project. So that was a little long, but I thought it would be worth telling you what we were up to with that group. Who would like to, I'm gonna stop sharing here so we can see each other. Who's got an update for us?
Well, let me go next. If I can explain my issue here. I'm in a place where I have to stop talking occasionally, since I'm sharing with my wife an office space, and when she has the call, she gets priority. But the news from CIE is well, a little bit of a down day today. We learned that a proposal that we were very optimistic about did not get funded from DOE. It's not devastating. It's just disappointing. Our EcoBlock project, which this was related to, is going extremely well. We have other proposals pending, and we're pretty optimistic. And we keep adding units because people, as they get involved with us, realize this is a really interesting and cool project. But I'm going to stop talking and let others have their say here.
Great, thanks, Carl. Who's got an update on something they're working on or a proposal?
This is Fan. Maybe just quickly update that we are currently working on a proposal with the Climate Imperative, which is on carbon neutrality study and the relation with China's 14th five-year plan with a focus on energy and power sectors. Okay,
great. Maybe next month or in January at our meeting, you could do a little more on that one, Fan. I think we'd be very interested. You're doing some interesting things with the Institute.
Yeah, happy to share the research next time.
Great.
And another update quickly to share is we are hosting a few dialogues Governor Brown is participating in with some Biden's advisor, talking about the US-China climate partnership and competition.
Great, good, thank you, Fan.
Fan, can you share when those dialogues will be happening with the group?
Yeah, I can definitely share that, and hopefully with readout after each dialogues.
Great.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Ethan Elkin, I know, wasn't going to make it until at least 3:30, but CLE at the law school is starting a set of 3 workshops, and the first one is around engineered carbon removal with people from on and off campus. That's this Friday, and they're going to be focused in this one workshop on the permitting issues. You know, this whole idea of grabbing CO2 out of the air and sequestering it underground often is running into or has run into local concerns or opposition. What are you doing with these big old oil and gas fields under where I live? We're going to store, billions of tons of CO2 down there indefinitely. So as you might expect, that's turned into a permitting issue that they're working on, and so they're having CLE's going to have a workshop this week on it. Who else has got something? Any other updates or news for us?
I can share a little bit.
Sure.
So on the state front, we are hearing from our colleagues in Sacramento that we expect some of the bills that were introduced last year to be reintroduced related to climate research. And those are the climate bond, which I think some of you had been helping with or talking to Senators Ben Allen and Senator Kevin Mullen, or Assembly Member, I'm sorry, Kevin Mullen. They're going to be, we expect that will be reintroduced. So that's a good signal for us to continue to work with those lawmakers in Sacramento on the climate bond. And again, we're hearing it doesn't have funding for research in it, but it doesn't mean that we can't figure out how we can be helpful in crafting it. And, there could definitely be ways that we could be engaged with that drafting of that legislation as it's reconsidered. And then the other bill, there's 3. The second is the single-use plastics bill that Senator Ben Allen and Lorena Gonzalez, Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, introduced last year. And the UC didn't really take very much action or engagement with it, but since the UC system has now banned single-use plastics, there could be an opportunity this year to do something around that in terms of advocating for them and with them to help that pass, because, you know, obviously has good environmental benefits for everybody. And then we do expect wildlife readiness response and possibly some funding for research related to that. We expect bills to be reintroduced on those topics as well. So I just wanted to share that, and I'm happy to, of course, work with any of you in connecting with the lawmakers in Sacramento. And then I also want to mention, Bruce, I do think that meeting that we did have with OPR and Kate Gordon was a great meeting. And I think it's important to continue to have those conversations since so many topics were raised. It was like an introductory meeting and it was great, but I feel like that's exactly the kind of meeting that we should be having ongoing with these folks, because if we're not talking to them regularly, the train just moves forward, as you know. Yeah. So just wanted to mention that. And then on the federal front, I think we're going to have a longer conversation about that, but Biden does have a green infrastructure plan that has been circulated. And yeah, and so I think, and then of course, working with Kathy Castor, Congresswoman Kathy Castor's Select Committee on Climate Change, or I think it has a slightly different word title, but in any case, I think there's great opportunity for us to continue to provide resources and input and expert engagement on the federal side. There will also be another, there will be a bill that's reintroduced at the federal level on single-use plastics called the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act that Congressman Alan Lowenthal, who's from California, is going to reintroduce. So anyway, there's probably a ton more on that front, but just giving you a flavor of what we see coming.
That's great. Thank you, Michelle. Just on the state, the meeting, yes, that we had with Kate Gordon and the others from OPR, when I pushed back on, let's go on a couple of next steps, they wanted to go slower. They already have these 3 workshops that they were setting up with CLE here on 3 different topics. And they asked at that point that we not take any new topics on, which disappointed me, but we'll wait and we'll get back to them. Okay, anybody else with an update or piece of news? Okay, thanks for that. We're on to our spotlight, and let me stop sharing.
And I'll share my screen here so you all can see.
Sharing. So Sasha.
Here we go.
So welcome to Sasha Harris Lovett at the Berkeley Water Center, who's gonna, we do these spotlights so we can see what are some opportunities perhaps going forward for collaboration, across campus. So welcome, Sasha, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. And thanks for having me here today. So I work at the Berkeley Water Center, which is housed in the College of Engineering. And just to make sure, can everyone see my screen here?
You could blow it up. If you blew it up, it would be.
Unfortunately, when I was doing presenter view before, when I tried it on Zoom, it was not working for me. So I think I'll leave it this way if that's okay with you all. So the mission of the Berkeley Water Center is to create more resilient, equitable, and sustainable water systems with access to safe water for all. And the way we do that is by leveraging Berkeley research to accelerate groundbreaking solutions for the world's water problems. Here's a picture of some of our grad students and postdocs and affiliates, our last in-person gathering before COVID. So our approach is really to try to bridge what's going on at UC Berkeley with water practitioners locally and in California. So we're asking questions like, what would it take for this innovative water technology or cutting edge science that we're doing at Berkeley to be adopted by water practitioners or to inform decision-making about water systems? And then also, what are the practical research needs and knowledge gaps for resilient or sustainable water systems that UC Berkeley researchers could help fill? So we have 2 recent projects that I'll share with you. The first is called the Bay Area One Water Network, which is a collaborative effort to try to advance more resilient water supplies for the San Francisco Bay Area. So we're partnering with local water supply and wastewater agencies, regulators at the Regional Water Board and the Environmental Protection Agency. And I'll talk a bit more about that effort. And then the second is not related to climate change, but I thought I'd mention it in case you all are interested, and we can, be happy to follow up more about it afterwards if people have interest. But Berkeley Water Center has also been very closely involved with an effort called COVID Web, which is a regional wastewater-based epidemiology project to monitor COVID-19 in the sewage of the San Francisco Bay Area to try to provide early warning about outbreaks. So I'll talk more about the Bay Area One Water Network because that's specifically focused on climate resilience. The Bay Area's water supplies are very dependent on snowmelt and from the McComie and Hetch Hetchy water sheds. So we've partnered with many different water supply and wastewater agencies as well as regulators to create this clearinghouse in the region to share information and build collaborative capacity and relationships, and also develop strategies for how to implement more resilient integrated water systems that don't depend so heavily on imported water that is really vulnerable to changing climatic conditions. So what did we do? We held 2 workshops with decision makers and stakeholders on advancing water reuse in the Bay Area and on stormwater as a potential water source for the Bay Area. And then we synthesized those workshops and discussions into reports that had some clear recommendations. And then we had webinars this past summer, to share the reports out more broadly with water practitioners in the Bay Area and across California. So we found that those reports were really helpful and have already started being integrated into a lot of the discussions in the region because they had tangible recommendations about specific data gaps and information needs. And because they were so specific to the Bay Area, they've been useful so far. So what's coming next for us? Well, we're really looking forward to collaborating with other members of this network, and some areas where we could foresee potential collaborations with others in this group are the Berkeley Water Center is quite involved with NAWI, the National Alliance for Water Innovation, which is the Department of Energy's water desalination hub. So this is a $25 million a year project with participants from 14 universities and 3 national labs, including UC Berkeley and LBL. And it's focused on water engineering and chemistry, material science, with the goal of reducing the cost and energy use associated with desalination. So that would be ocean desalination, but also the other water technologies that would use the same kind of desal membranes. So that could be for water recycling or for industrial use or brackish groundwater desalination. So far, NAWI has been very focused on the hard science, chemistry, engineering, material science, but there is a lot of interest in understanding the ways that policy and social science can be integrated with this hard science to help understand the transition to some of these new water sources and to better understand how the technologies could be integrated into planning. The other project, which we're quite involved with, is a regional effort towards nature-based solutions for shoreline resilience in the San Francisco Bay Area. So there's been a push for something that's been called horizontal levees, which are vegetated engineered wetlands that are also levees that are designed to improve the water quality from wastewater effluent that flows into the San Francisco Bay, as well as to protect infrastructure from sea level rise. So those are some of our projects that we're looking forward to, and be happy to talk more with you all about that. So that's all I have prepared, and I'd like to open it up for questions. I'll stop sharing my screen here.
So please unmute yourself and ask a question. I can start with the first one. Can you say a little more about the COVID web project? I'm intrigued. I think we've seen this in the paper a bit. It's
Yeah.
used to kind of, you said, identify outbreaks and all.
Yeah, so early in the course of the pandemic, UC Berkeley, some UC Berkeley researchers realized that they had tools to identify SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19 in wastewater. So I'm working most closely with Kara Nelson, who's in civil and environmental engineering, and also the Banfield Lab in molecular and cell biology. And they developed really good, robust, cheap, rapid methods for detecting the virus in wastewater. And I worked with them to secure a grant from a private foundation to build a high throughput lab at UC Berkeley to process wastewater samples from around the Bay Area, because there actually is not a lot of laboratory capacity for the wastewater monitoring yet. So monitoring the virus in wastewater is really promising because it has the potential to provide an early warning for outbreaks, because people tend to shed the virus before they show symptoms or get tested, or even if they never show symptoms or don't have access to healthcare. So it's kind of a complementary data stream that can help public health decision makers have a sense of what's going on a little earlier than they might by looking at just clinical case data or hospitalizations. So the Berkeley Water Center is really organizing the collaborations with the local public health departments and the State Department of Public Health, as well as with the wastewater agencies, to get all these samples to the lab, get the information back out to where it is most needed.
How local is local when you're monitoring?
We're working in we're working in Alameda County, Contra Costa County, San Francisco, Marin, Napa, and San Mateo and Sonoma are interested. San Jose, also we're working with them as well.
My question was, is it done kind of it's not block by block that you're monitoring, but is it at a county level or a water agency level, or is it finer than that?
Oh, great question. It varies. We're monitoring at wastewater treatment plants, which could be at the level of a city or larger than a city or smaller than a city, depending on the plant. We are monitoring also in some neighborhoods that approximate census tract size or zip code size populations. Then we're also monitoring at some facilities, and including UC Berkeley owned ones like University Village and Clark Kerr campus, to try to get a sense of what's happening there. So there's different uses for those different scales of data, but they're all interesting in different ways.
Who's got a question for Sasha about any of the projects she talked about?
Sasha, are you working with any local lawmakers on these projects? Like, do they know about them, or are they interested in them?
That's a great question. We've had interest from city council members. And so I've spoken with some city council members, and I guess we've had more communication with the regulators, with the Bay Area One Water Network in particular. So that would be, the Regional Water Quality Control Board.
Right.
But I would like to have more interaction with elected officials, particularly about the local water sustainability and resilience themes, because having that kind of support is really helpful.
Yeah, so maybe we'll talk offline about that, but I agree with you. I think it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Hi, Sasha. It's Kira Stoll from Sustainability. I just wanted to mention that I'm working right now with the Campus Physical and Environmental Planning Office. They're doing the new campus long-range development plan and campus master plan. And we've added two additional studies to complement that on campus water. One, green green infrastructure and stormwater management, and sustainable water action plan, which also includes looking at opportunities for sewage treatment, recycled water on the campus. I've suggested, recommended, so you'll probably be hearing that we reach out to your group to get some input into the planning process, which is happening. It's a pretty fast track. These plans are in the works, and I think they're aiming to have them done around February.
Wonderful. Great. Yeah, I didn't mention that the Berkeley Water Center has about 45 faculty affiliates in different colleges and departments. So I'm sure many of our faculty affiliates would be really interested in looking at those plans and providing feedback.
So would you be a good person to reach out to, and maybe you could filter around and see who might want?
Definitely. Yeah.
Sasha, you said you got a grant. You wrote a grant for this COVID project. Where did you get the money for your participation in this?
My salary is funded through the College of Engineering support for the Berkeley Water Center. And then on the COVID web project specifically, Kara Nelson, who is leading the research effort, had some seed funding from Citrus and the IGI that helped pay for some of my time to participate in that project.
Great. Excellent.
I see there's a question in the chat. Michelle and Sasha, is there a systematic way that we provide legislators with policy briefings on our research? That's a great question. I don't know the answer. And Michelle?
Sure. So yeah, the systematic way is you're supposed to work through our office, but it actually, in reality, I mean, that's the way it's supposed to happen, and in ideal circumstances, but yeah, but it doesn't happen that way. So because these things are very, case by case, but certainly, obviously you can imagine how many policy briefings our campus produces on different topics every day and every year. But my office does serve as a great sort of clearinghouse point of contact. We have relationships at all levels of government, and can help strategize with who the best people to target, who to talk to, what bills are they working on. So I would just recommend everyone to, and I can be a good point of contact for our whole little team. If you don't, I might refer first people to my colleagues, but that's the system. I mean, every UC campus has an Office of Government and Community Relations, and we all operate with the same intention to do that with our research enterprises, to be a helpful resource and conduit for lawmakers. So feel free to reach out to me, and we can develop a customized plan for what you're trying to get accomplished.
Other questions or comments for Sasha? Okay. Well, thank you, Sasha, for coming today and for giving us the rundown. We have your slides because we're recording this, so I've got that, but maybe we can talk offline afterwards and see about things that you have kind of maybe that you're looking forward to. Actually, I'll ask it now, anything that you all are kind of scheming up right now? You could lead us into the next discussion actually about the new administration and all, or is it too soon?
I think, the main things we're scheming are what I shared on the slide, with working with NAWI and the Shoreline Resilience Horizontal Levee Project.
Good, great. If any of you are hikers and you like to walk at the San Leandro shoreline, you can actually see the project that Sasha was talking about, at least that horizontal levee at the EBDA plant there. It's always kind of fun to see these things actually in action. Okay, thank you very much, Sasha.
I just have one question, Sasha, about NAWI. Is it going forward as expected, even given the COVID situation?
Yes,
It is. That's
Yeah.
good. Good. No delays, because they were awarded the money, and then several months later, the world went upside down. So I'm glad to hear that.
As far as I know, yeah, I personally haven't been directly involved with NAWI, but the faculty director of the Berkeley Water Center, David Sedlak, is very closely involved with it.
Great.
And it sounds like everything is moving forward according to plan.
That's great. They were also supposed to get some state matching money, which I'll follow up with them on how that was going, because I know there was a concern about that at one point. But thank you.
Thanks, Sasha. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen quickly here with the question that so we've got about 15 minutes left. The question for initial discussion here is what you see on the screen. If you're thinking or have been thinking about the possibility of a new administration, now we're going to get one in one way or another, and how that may impact Berkeley's climate research. You heard me talk earlier about the question that we posed, kind of this one, to the engineered carbon removal group last week. How would Berkeley, or what's Berkeley's story, assuming that there's going to be a lot more money in the new year, either from the feds or from big philanthropy that's interested in climate now, or other. But this specifically looking at federal research dollars, I want to ask this question and see what your initial ideas are about how it may impact us, and are you thinking how we're going to get ready, and what are you doing to kind of get ready for this opportunity? I'll stop sharing, and the couple of things that I put in the agenda we sent out were, one, the Biden-Harris climate plan, the Clean Energy Revolution and Environmental Justice Plan is the official title. It's the most aggressive climate plan that any major party has put together here in this country. They're using terms like urgency, and we must have greater ambition. There's no greater challenge. Biden listed it last week and of one of the kind of 4 things they were going to get going on right away. And this is not what we've had, at least certainly for the last 4 years, but before that as well. I always said that if Hillary Clinton had won, it would have been so much better for us, but on climate, we still would have been in such big trouble. It wasn't like they were going to fix it all, and Biden's not going to be able to fix it all now. But they've got a new thing called the Climate 21 project that I didn't send. Sounds like Agenda 21. Climate 21 project that's a very interesting kind of 300-page thought piece on how they can get going with executive orders and other types of things in this first year of the new administration. So there's all of that, and we sent you a couple of links for articles about how that may free things up in California as well, because we've spent a fair amount of time doing kind of rear guard fighting actions to push the Trump people away in California and let us do our climate work here. So I just wanted to see what you're thinking in terms of are you thinking about that we'll have more research money, and what might be the topics? How might you want to find partners for that kind of thing? So let's just open the floor here. David Woolley has joined us. David, we did introductions earlier, so David, welcome. But what's anyone thinking yet? I know it's early, but it's never too early to be thinking about research money, and there's going to be a lot more of it next year. David, you deal with policy a lot. What are you thinking about this yet?
Well, what this brings to mind, and I'm sorry to join late. I have a family member who had surgery a day and a half ago, so I had home duty to do.
Understood.
What this brings to mind is that you remember we issued that 2035 report on how to get to 90% carbon free in the electric power sector, and we're currently planning a follow-on report that looks at transportation. It basically adds transportation to that analysis. And we don't have that funded yet. The researchers that are on a multiple location agreement from the lab to the Goldman School are developing some new modeling tools to look at that. And it emerges from a similar impulse as the first report, in that the cost of batteries and renewable energy have come down so fast and so recently that it also has effects in the transportation sector. And I'm particularly interested in where we can go on heavy duty surface transport because of the very large environmental justice benefits of reducing exposure to diesel particulate along with the co-emitted greenhouse gases. And so that's an area that both of those areas are ones that we'll be looking for funding for. It can't say I've gotten very far on that yet, but those are two things that come to mind.
Great, thanks, David. Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm assuming you're also working with some faculty from the Institute of Transportation Studies, or have been talking.
Yeah, in particular, Tim Lipman.
Yeah.
Very much. And particularly on our heavy duty transport research work. And Tim and I are hoping to join with the Center for Transportation and Environment on a proposal regarding decarbonization of drayage, a pilot decarbonization of drayage trucks for the East Bay region. It's a California Energy Commission request for proposals. But on the federal level, it's too early. I'm still getting rest from taking days off to work on voter protection in Arizona. So.
Good, thank you for your work. Yeah, maybe it is too early. Let me turn it around though, turn the question around. What should we be doing, or what's been done in the past when there's an obvious opportunity like this coming? Do we leave it to individuals or individual centers, individual researchers to organize their own asks, or do we work more collectively? Are there good examples of that that we've done to bring, maybe a cross section of the campus together to put a proposal together? I'm an outsider here, so I'm asking the question, what should we do to over the next couple of months to get more ready?
That sounds like a Dave Trinkle question.
Yeah, I was thinking about how I would answer that. Traditionally, campus doesn't, provide an input to something or, a centrally organized proposal. We definitely have roles in disseminating information, what's being requested, passing along intel and what we're hearing. If it makes sense to do larger, and certainly facilitating larger groups if it makes sense, but it's often more impactful for smaller groups, which may or may not be even campus centric, but might be led from somebody on campus working with partners somewhere else even to respond to. So, without knowing what's coming down the pike, it's probably most effective to compare notes on what we're hearing, to talk about how those align with what we have on campus and what we have going on with logical partners, and then kind of, I think this meeting is a great forum for keeping tabs on those efforts as they go forward, seeing how other people might be able to be added, if there, especially if there's something missing to in a proposal that's being pulled together. But yeah, campus-centric efforts often, you know, we always talk about it, and it doesn't seem to be the most effective way to move forward usually. But information shared in a format like this is great.
Gail, what do you think?
Yeah, I was actually thinking exactly along those lines. First, there's so much uncertainty right now. There's so much hope, but still so much uncertainty that I think it's too early for the question, what should we do? And the question is more about how do we best utilize the network and sharing information so we can be really nimble once we do have more information and then know what to do.
And getting that information would that be getting that from federal agencies or state agencies? David, Gail, you know, who will we be hearing from that we should be paying attention to?
I think it's an and, not an or. And so it may be that as part of the network, if we can have just a portal so that there's so much email that comes either within campus or outside of campus. Anything we can do to get around email and either use the website or a Slack channel or Microsoft Teams. I don't really care what platform it is, as long as it's not email. So I don't think we should think that when an email goes out, it's going to be seared in our brains and in our archives. And so if there's something where we can really utilize, I think, the ECRN website as a portal, because the timing of when somebody receives information and the timing of when somebody has cleared out an hour in their calendar to try to look into what has been collected, those are never going to be in sync. So I think if there could be a part of the ECRN website that just collects this kind of information, that itself could be really valuable.
Yeah, I'll second that. You know, whether it's the website or a Google Drive or whatever, just things come in and they don't necessarily come in when you're looking for them, or you remember it comes in, but then you can't find it again later. You know, I'm getting all sorts of intel over time. Climate is one of those areas that it's sometimes it doesn't align well with a department or set of departments. So having a group like this that kind of is aligned with the topic area makes it easy for me to pass things along, and much more so than, you know, what's my distribution list this time around. You know, Lewis Burke, the firm we work with in DC, is talking about, you know, the possibility of an ARPA climate, you know, as the climate plan kind of gets more developed, we're going to keep hearing about it. So it would be great to have a place where I can send it and agree, not just as an email, but, you know, or send it as an email, but then we have a place to archive it.
Yeah. Excellent. I'll get right on it. No, I think that's the kind of thing that could be very helpful. You know, we did a meeting, I know people are zoomed out. We did a 1-hour meeting on engineered carbon removal because we wanted to start with that. And we were able to pull in, it was probably 25 people, and there were probably 17 or 18 who were doing research in that area. Some of them knew each other and some didn't. And it was helpful just for one meeting to pull them together. And now we're going to figure out, okay, what are the next steps there. Got about another minute, David.
One idea is, I haven't looked at all these Biden climate and environmental justice plans, but is there one that's specifically a research agenda, or have any of the NGOs that follow this, you know, put together kind of a research agenda? Because it may be quite a helpful contribution. If someone took on the job of looking at what changes and gaps exist
Mhm.
in US DOE, Department of Interior, EPA, all of them fund climate research, and just identify those for the new administration. This would be a big piece of work. I don't know how we would staff it, but first, I think the first screen would be, has somebody already done something like this?
Yeah, exactly.
And then if they have, we could look at it from a Berkeley perspective and amend it, add to it. But if nobody's done it, that seems like a major gap, in that there's an opportunity for the campus to fill that gap and raise our profile.
That'd be very interesting. That's a very good suggestion. And I can do a little sleuthing to see what's out there. That's what we tried to do a couple of months ago with Kate Gordon at the state level, and a couple of her people, was to say, what are your biggest research needs right now? And that's where carbon removal came up. I was just glancing through my notes, but I don't see it. But in going through that Biden plan that I sent you the link on, research is called out in a couple of places, but it's not, David, a full, here are the research priorities. That'd be very interesting.
And one of them that is on my mind a lot lately is this question of transition, sort of a managed transition for oil and gas production, industries, and refining. And I think there's a project underway right now. It's UC Santa Barbara from a California perspective. I don't think that report's come out yet. I have to check on that. But it was only, I think, expected to be a start on that question. And we have all these oil field workers. We have all these refinery related communities with tax bases.
Yep.
We don't want to approach this thing and just jump off a cliff. It has to be thoughtful. And the same issue is, in other states, Alaska, Texas, Oklahoma, all of these states are going to have to begin to look, whether they like it or not, at a transition.
There's a lot of interest in that whole just transition field right now. And the Biden plan, if you look through it, actually calls out the obligation to workers in various industries, fossil fuels included, as one of the 4 big headlines. So it's at least getting that. I don't have it right in front of me, but I'll send it out on the post meeting report. There is a webinar coming up with is it Carol Zabin from the Labor Center here on campus?
Yeah, that's
right. So she's doing something with the Climate Center on the just transition, a webinar about it later this week. I'll send the link to it.
Oh, I'd like to see that. I wasn't aware of that.
Thank you all. We're at time and we'd like to respect your time. Thanks for giving us an hour today. Thank you, Sasha, for presenting the spotlight and for all of you being with us. We're still looking at whether we're going to have a December meeting or let it go till and start again in January, but we'll let you know here. If we do a December meeting, it would be at that same time. It would be the 10th, but we're still debating that one. Okay, thank you. Stay well. Enjoy life. Try to. And see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.